Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So why do we twist our strings on our bows? What's the benefits to this? What also does not happen when we shorten the string more too? That's the interesting part. So let's get started. So I've already taken all the twist out of this string, so you can see it's kind of really fibrous, and yeah, this stuff can catch on anything. These are really fine, fibery strings, and if you break them, well, it makes your string weaker. So to prevent this, you do put twists in the string, but the reason why you put the twist in the string is not so much to avoid the breakage, and this is disgusting, it's to quiet down the bow as well. The main purpose for twisting the string, which does make the string a little shorter, is to set your brace height, because there's a amount of minimum and maximum brace height on all bows, and that includes your crossbows too, okay, and compound bows, etc. Okay, so they all have a certain amount of twists in them to set brace heights, and compounds actually have a lot more to it than just twisting the string. That's a whole other ball game, but today we're going to concentrate on bows that are not compound, so they're going to be like a recurve bow or long bow, short bows, self bows, bows without the compound system, right? Anyway, so on a 62-inch recurve bow, for example, which is packed away in the bag right now, that string is supposed to be 54 inches long, so 4 inches shorter than the length of the bow, and that's fine. Okay, we got that. There's a reason for this. We need some preload on the limbs, but this is also the length of the string before we start twisting it. Once we start twisting it, we do decrease the length of the string, okay? And it's going to be by how many twists you go, how much shorter that gets. And you have to be careful with that, because you do have to have your brace height set correctly for your bow. And you do have minimum and maximum limits that you need to deal with. Now, of course, on this kiddie bow, we don't even know what the brace height is supposed to be, but we should actually twist the string regardless. Now, from what I have understood on a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of internet searching, we twist from the bottom, okay? Now, they suggest usually 3 twists to start out with, but this is completely untwisted. I've taken all the twists out, but I'm going to go 6 twists to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, how I'm counting that is I'm looking at where my starting point is, so I bring that loop right back around to the beginning again, so that'd be 7. So that's a 6 twists. And they say to do it from the bottom, and it affects top and bottom equally, in which case, from what I'm looking at, it seems to be doing that. Now, I've tried this from the top side, and it actually does work better from the bottom. I really didn't think there'd be that much difference, so I actually played around with my own recurve today, and well, this is my own too, but my real recurve, and I did notice that even though the twists do get put in on both sides, it would seem that it is better to do it from the bottom, not from the top side, because the top side, when you do it there, you end up with more twists on the top than you do on the bottom. I'm not sure how that part of physics is working on the bow, but it seems to be that way. So, of course, we got to straighten all that mess out, obviously, right? But the twists also, and how much of your brace height you have, it does affect your point of impact, okay? It's also going to affect your notch height as well when you shrink that string. So, you know, I know where my notch height is supposed to be set for having my arrow sit perfectly even and straight when it's on the rest to here. I can actually eyeball that and know that it's dead straight. And so I know that that part is all good, and it's fine on where my knocking point is. That's all good there too. And then it's just a matter of, you know, do I have the equal amount of twist, top and bottom? In this case, we know we do, okay, because we start at the bottom and it affects the whole thing. And like I said, I'm not quite understanding the entire physics behind this, but I did try it just from the top side, and like I said, I ended up somehow with more twists in the top than the bottom. So we do it from the bottom and away we go. Now, what happens here when we twist it too is it does make the string more rounder. It tightens those fibers of the string together, binding them better. Also adds strength and durability factors, and you're not so easy to get at and spread these apart, okay? And when you're waxing the bow either way, you're still going to be running your fingers up and down, which will flatten as you're coming up, but it also retwists as you're coming back up as well when you're going up and down, and you get full coverage of the wax on the string. Now, you should also wax your string often. I actually wax the string on my bow, actually both my bows, every time before I shoot them, okay? It's just a habit I've gotten into, and that's what I do, and I've always done that, all right? And there's a lot I didn't understand about bows until the last little bit. I got my first real bow, which was a compound, was my first real bow. I got that fuse, probably, well, it's a little bit more than maybe 10 years ago, I guess. I don't know. The video's on my channel. It's a PSE Martin. That was gifted to me from a friend, and unfortunately I had to part with it eventually. Bills came first. So I have recently got a new compound, plus I got my first real recurve bow ever. So prior to this, I've been stuck with stuff like this and the fiberglass Indian bows, and I've had that junk forever, right? And now that it's complete junk, great for beginners, but there's a limit. This is not exactly great for beginner. It's all plastic, and well, we're going to be doing an update review. So a little heads up though, don't waste 120 bucks on this bow. You'd be a fool, and you'd be partying with good money. You could put that money into a real bow for your youngster, or even for yourself if you're an adult, and you can get a really decent bow on Amazon for like the same amount of money. So why would you waste it on a piece of plastic garbage? So anyway, but so our benefits are strengthening the string, adding the preload necessary to the limbs, okay, getting our brace height all set properly. We do have to keep an eye out too, because strings do stretch as well, not just when they're brand new. They will stretch a little bit over time. It does come to a certain point where they pretty much should settle down, but not 100%. So it'd be a good idea to keep an eye on your brace height setting, so that you make sure whatever you set your brace height at, between the minimum and maximum amount, whatever that number is, always make sure that it's set there. And if it's not, then just remove the bottom string, put in a twist or two, recheck it until you're tuned back up. This way your arrows are always going to shoot the same, or at least you're going to shoot the same. Depends if you're doing instinctive shooting, using sights, etc. I do instinctive shooting, so I focus on my target. So, but I still need to make sure my brace height is correct. Otherwise it will throw off my shots. So that's a big deal. Now, what doesn't this do? What's the bottom line here? Well, it doesn't add any extra speed to your bow. It doesn't add any extra horsepower. Okay, so if you've got a 20-pound bow, you got a 20-pound bow, man. That's it. If you got a 40-pound, you got a 40. You got a 60, you got a 60, and so on. Okay, right up to 100 and whatever the highest bow horsepower is that's out there. Okay, now you could literally overdraw bows like this. So bows that are not compound based, you can overdraw them, with the exception of a crossbow, regardless if it's a compound crossbow or if it's the standard leafs, right? Like standard limbs, non-compound limbs. Okay, you can't overdraw those. They have a prefixed notching point, and that's all there is to it, okay? And I would not advise rolling the string shorter and shorter to have more preload to the limbs, because this is not going to increase power. But let me continue. Okay, so crossbows, regardless of the type, and compound bows, you cannot overdraw them. They are set at a specific length. That's it. Okay, so if I have my compound set at 28 inches, it's 28 inches. I can't draw further, because once I hit that let off and I'm at the end, I'm at my 28 inches and I can't draw any further. But with these kind of bows, non-compound based, you can overdraw them. So if you're looking to add more horsepower, so more speed and more foot-pounds of energy out of your bow, the only way you can actually do that is by overdrawing. And you got to be very careful if you overdraw your bow because, well, number one, you can damage the bow. That's a given. It can be damaged. The limbs can be, I mean, you could even literally snap a solid wood bow in half by overdrawing it way past its point. Okay, which that's going to take a lot of strength to do that on a longbow. But anyways, either way, solid wood is not the best choice when it comes to the overdraw kind of deal. But with the limbs that are composite limbs, okay, which is very common on our recurve bows, whether they're a traditional one-piece or they're takedown style, if they have all wood limbs, well, you shouldn't ever leave them strung up anyways because you'll damage the limbs just like you would on a longbow. And once the damage is there, there's no reversing it, okay? Other than on a takedown, you could just buy new limbs because, yeah, you'd have to. But the composite limbs don't seem to be that problematic, right? I've watched a video or two about this, and a guy actually ruined 3 longbows, leaving them strung up for a couple of months in the back room. He forgot. And they're all basically screwed. They no longer have the same performance capabilities, etc. Okay, his recurve bows that were composite limbed had no ill effects after sitting for a few months, and that was great. So perfect. But does that mean we can get away with doing that indefinitely? Probably not. Eventually, it's all going to get damaged if we do not unstring after each use. Okay, so we should de-string our bows when we're done messing with them. The exception to that rule, of course, is compound bows. Whether it's a crossbow or a regular compound bow, you don't de-string those after every use, and there's no point to it, and it would be too much of a nightmare all the time, among other problematic situations that happen with that. So there are exceptions to the rule, but on this kind of stuff, yeah, you should definitely get the pressure off those limbs. Now, this thing has a 24-inch minimum to a 26-inch maximum draw length. I'm a 28, okay? Now, we've already tested this bow already, and I can tell you that at my draw length of 28, which is definitely overdrawing this bow, this thing only has 14 pounds, and that's how crappy those nocks are. So this thing only has 14 pounds of total draw weight, which is kind of like pretty weak, considering it's supposed to be 15 to 20. However, if I draw this back to where it should be, there's about 24 there. Too much arrow overhanging, hardly any power. This thing will be lucky to make 10 yards. Now, if I go to the 26, I'm going to have a better chance at possibly hitting 10 yards, but it won't stick very far into the box anyway. But then, of course, I can overdraw this thing to 28. Now I have a good amount sticking over, which I should have. These arrows are actually too long for this bow, and yet they came with it from the factory. Go figure, okay? So, but if you overdraw the bow, you can damage the bow, but that is the only way you are going to add any extra speed or horsepower into a bow. In this case, it kind of goes against the grain because this thing can't even do 20 pounds at full draw of 26. And at 28, it's still only stuck at 14. So the only thing we're adding for extra power at 28 is whatever we would have at 26 and 24. That's all we would get is that little bit of extra, and that would be the end of it. And I can't draw this thing past 28 without hearing cracks because I tried and I was like, that's not good. So definitely you can damage bows when you overdraw them. But as much as you want to shorten this string, okay, or even just run a shorter string, try putting a 54, it'd be a 54. Try putting a 54-inch string, that's 2 inches shorter. You're going to add a lot of preload to these limbs, but you're not actually adding any power. You're shortening your distance of how far you got to pull back. So instead of here to here, it's going to be more like here to here. You lose power, you lose speed, because now the limbs can't do their job with all that power they're supposed to store. They can't go all the way forward to their resting point of being normally just strung. they can't go to that point anymore, so you lose speed and you lose energy. So the bow then sucks. So there you go. And that is fact, okay? And I've done the math forwards and backwards. I've done the testing myself, and I can tell you that is the way it is. So anybody who tells you that you can, add more power by shortening your string, by putting more and more twists in it, or adding more preload period to the limbs, they're liars, okay? They have no idea what they're talking about. The only way to add more speed to a current bow in its current state is to overdraw it. And that is the only way you'll get more speed and more poundage out of the bow, but you do run the risk of even snapping that bow in half. So, and that can be dangerous with all of that force coming back at your face. So be very careful on how you do things with your bows, and make sure you always buy a bow that's proper for you and for your draw length. Also make sure your arrows are proper length too, so that they shoot properly out of your bow, and the proper spine. Otherwise, yeah, good luck hitting the broad side of the barn otherwise. That's what I got for you guys today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Stick by for more. We got more and more archery stuff coming up over the spring and the summer and the fall, and continuing on. And I'm going to be collecting probably a couple more bows as I can afford them. And I'm even going to try getting a brand new right-handed real bow and try and do instinctive shooting with that. Because I did shoot right-handed my entire life, but I really sucked at it. But now I know what I was doing wrong, but I also, as long as I use both eyes open, I might be okay. I might be able to do shooting both styles. But I did find that by going left-handed, because I am left eye dominant and left-handed dominant, I shoot way better than I ever did right-handed. So, but then again, I also, since I got back into this, I've been learning things that I did wrong all those years too, even as a left-handed shooter. So I guess we'll see how things go in the long haul. So thanks again. See ya.